I gotta get it. Cause I gotta get it. What's going on? This is your boy SB. So we are talking about qualifications for positions. There's been a lot of questions. Oh, well, what does it take to be, an indirect? Or what do I have to be an ambassador? What's the requirements to be a PA? What's the requirements to be an AM? Boom, 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 boom. So I thought it would only be right. I don't have a video directly pinpointing this. Let's do a video on it. So starting off, these are just my opinions. These do not reflect Amazon's requirements. So I'm not going off step-by-step requirement of what you would see when you apply for a PA online, or what you will see when you apply for an AM online internally. I'm just talking about personally, because honestly, they do ask for certain skills. And you don't really need certain ones, but we'll talk about that when we get to that point. So out of all the people who have asked about certain requirements, believe it or not, a lot of them, or a nice amount of them, they did ask about the indirects. They were like, yo, what's the requirement to be an indirect? And I'm like, your heart beating, you good, you feel me? So we're going to talk about basically the requirements for the indirects, the requirements to be an ambassador, requirements for a PA, and the requirements for an AM internally. And then we're also going to talk about, for each one of those, the time limit that it usually takes to get there, if there's a time limit requirement, and then also, to my experience and my opinion, the difficulty level for each one of those things. So we'll start off with the indirects. That's the water spire, that's the pallet runners, that's the problem solvers, that's the tote runners, the jam clearers, the what's those things called, the VRC operators. All those things are the indirects. So the time limit that you must have to be an indirect, honestly, the only thing that I've really seen was being out of your learning curve. Your learning curve is usually like 30 days, your first month. As long as you meet your productivity on that learning curve, then after you hit the learning curve, you're usually good to boom, hop into an indirect and go from there. It's really not all right, you need to be here for 2 months no. The indirect role is the easiest role to get into when it comes to effort, when it comes to time, and when it comes to requirements. Some of the requirements that they may say, and this may differ by building and by leadership in that department, I would say also keep your UPT above 10. And you always want to avoid, for each and every one of these positions, I think it's pretty much the same. You don't want to have any active write-ups. You don't want to have an active write-up going for a PA position, definitely not for an AM, and definitely not for an ambassador. When it comes to the indirects, I honestly knew people who had write-ups and they were still being an indirect. So I don't know how strict they are on that. I think that's more so to a building by building, leadership team by team decision. But I would just say, to be on the safe side, avoid that. Avoid the write-ups. Keep about 10 hours of UPT. All my VTO warriors out there, I know y'all probably sweating right now and probably scratching like, oh man, I don't know how I can do that. I got a cool one that I'm trying to hold on to. Let it build up, family. Let it build up. The reason you want to get into that indirect role, it'll help your weeks go by faster. You're not just doing one thing all day. You're not just packing all day. You're not just throwing all day. And the difficulty level that I rate being and going for that indirect level, very easy. When I became an indirect, it was for a pallet runner. Right after my learning curve, it wasn't even on my shift. And I think I was still at the very end of my learning curve. It was, because this is more so by need. They always are going to need indirects. The main indirects that they may be usually relying on may go home early, may do this, may do that. So there will be times where it's like, yo, we need an indirect. He's barely on his week 3 on his learning curve. All right, you know what? Who cares? We need somebody to pull him. And in my case, that's what happened. They pulled me to be a pallet runner. I was like, hey, they was like, hey, we need you to pallet run. I was like, okay, bet, cool. I'm ready for my training. They said, training, sir, there's the pallet jack, run. I said, all right, bet. This does not reflect all Amazon's training principles. But they did ask me if I had any history in doing a pallet run. I was like, yeah, it's very easy. So they went ahead and let me do it. Watch me. They was like, all right, cool. He got this, bet. Difficulty level, easy. So we're going to move on to the next one, which is the ambassador. I love the ambassador position. I ain't going to lie. I got some story times on why I love the ambassador position. If you know this channel, then you should know already. It's the away team. If you're not in, let me hold off. All right, so the ambassador qualifications, this may vary by building. It may vary when you go by just the book. But from what I know, you want to avoid having any write-ups when you're going for that ambassador position. Another requirement is being out of your learning curve, except there's actually an exception when it comes to that learning curve, when it comes to the ambassador. The exception that I've seen when it came to being an ambassador, I've seen people be an ambassador their second week working at Amazon. Like, how in the world does that happen? The reason that this happens, I've launched 3 buildings, and each time I've launched a building, when we are there about the first, second week, we're already given our inputs on who the ambassador should be, and they pick those people. They just barely found out how to pack and barely found out how to stow, and they then become ambassadors. So that's really the only time I've seen an exception when it comes to that, is if you're in a brand new building, a new launch building, then you can expect to be an ambassador week 2, week 3, week 1, the end of week 1. It can happen. So when it comes to requirement, it gets a little weird when it comes to the ambassador. So technically you're supposed to have over 10 hours, but I'm just saying, I've seen certain people, I think this goes by team basis as well, because I've seen people become an ambassador when they didn't have those 10 hours of UPT. But then again, I've seen people not be able to become an ambassador when they didn't have those 10 hours of UPT. So always cover yourself, be on the safe side. You want to have at least 10 hours UPT. Another requirement, you want to stay away from the write-ups. Stay away from any active write-ups. You want to avoid that at all costs. So when it comes to the time limit, like I said, there's an exception if you're in a new building. Other than that, it can literally take like a month, 2 months. And this is in a mature building. If you're just killing it, I don't want to say a month. I'd take a month back. I would say at least 2 to 3 months. There are rare cases where someone just comes out the gate super killing it. They have super influence on the floor. They have a great personality. They get along with everyone. So those kind of I have seen somebody get snatched up super quick. Not really a month, but I would say about 2 months. It took me 2 months to get my ambassador vest. But then again, timing itself could be an issue when it comes to this position. You could be coming for this position right when they just put on 10 new ambassadors and they're not really at that point where they need ambassadors. So timing could play a thing in this position as well. I have seen that happen a few times where somebody who was actually really, really qualified, but we literally just filled up with a whole new set of ambassadors. It was like, man, all right, listen, stand by, give us a couple months, boom, we're gonna get you on the next batch of ambassadors that go in. So for the difficulty level for this position, I put it just above easy and I gave it medium. The reason why I gave it medium is because when it came to the indirects, I literally seen almost 100% of people who wanted to indirect. Whether it may have not have been exactly what they wanted to indirect for, but they were redirected to indirect somewhere else. When it comes to the ambassador, I have seen people that did not get that ambassador vest, whether it be they got the runaround or they just didn't get it for some unknown strange reason that I don't really know. My personal opinion doesn't really matter on that. This may go from a team to team, building to building basis as well. That's why I give it just above easy into medium, because I have seen people get the runaround and not get the ambassador vest. All right, so when it comes to this next position, also one of my favorites, the PA. Definitely want to have over your 10 hours of UPT. This is another one you don't want to have any write-ups. Do not have write-ups on that. I actually think you want to be hard on yourself when it comes to this position with the restrictions or with the requirements, due to the fact because there's so many who want this position. So if you don't have all the requirements, there'll probably be at least 10, 15, 20, 30 other people who do have it. So you want to make sure you don't really even play with the requirements. But if you just happen to be a little under UPT by accident, don't let that hold you back. Still shoot for it as well. So those would be the two requirements, from my opinion: no write-ups and having some UPT. Have I seen people with write-ups get into this position? Actually, I don't think so. I think they are pretty strict when it comes to the write-ups, when it comes to the PA position. Like I said, this is just my experience. So, of course, run all this by your HR and your AMs. This is just a rough rundown of these positions. Now, when it comes to the time length, is there a time length? I got that question a lot. How long do you have to be indirect? Do you have to be an indirect certain long, or a certain time amount before you can be a PA? Do you have to be an ambassador a certain time amount before you be a PA? Listen, there is no set time limit. When it comes to the AM, there is a set time limit, which we're going to talk about, but for the PA, there's no set time limit. I've seen people get it in personally in my experience at Amazon. I've personally seen somebody get the PA position in 5 months. I could have got the PA position in 5 months, but I was one of the ones like, you know what? Yeah, I don't feel, I want to stay in this ambassador position a little bit longer. I want to feel a little more comfortable. It was like, bro, are you sure? We're telling you to go to be a PA. And my self was like, yeah, I want to learn a little more. It was like, all right, gave it to the next person. And that person wasn't even, they definitely wasn't qualified. I was like, I'm mad. And it's funny because I've seen some of y'all in the comment sections like, yeah, they're talking to me about it, but I don't think I'm ready. Listen, if they're talking to you about it and they're encouraging you to go for it, go for it. They obviously think you're ready. All right, so the difficulty level that I rated going for that PA position, I put the highest. I always be putting the most on the PAs because the most be going on the PAs. That's a fact. But the reason why I make this the highest ranked position to get into is because just number wise, it's so many people that are going for this position. And it's usually like 4 slots, 3 slots, 1 slot, or maybe 2 on your shift. That can always vary depending on what the building is going through. But so when you have so many people going for a position that has very few slots, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Even when I became a PA, it was a gang of people who was going for that PA position. And I felt it was a gang of people who was way more qualified than me. I kind of felt like, snaps, I got this person. They all been here longer than me. They all trained in way more than me. I was kind of second guessing myself, but I was just like, yo, I'm still gonna give it everything that I have. And I ended up getting it. But it was a lot of people that was going for it. And also another reason why I say this is one of the most difficult positions is because with the warehouse, a trend that I've always seen is a transitioning in AMs in management. And you're trying to get into that PA position. Endorsement is everything. Having them endorse you, basically co-sign you. So that's another reason why it's so difficult, because they change managers like clothes in Amazon. Sometimes you get a whole new manager that just came in. They have no idea who you are. And even though you may be killing it, they may have, let's just say, another personal preference that they may want to go with. So then all of your hard work and all of the rapport that you built up with your last manager is now gone. So that's one reason why I think it's a difficult position to get into. And you may have to, I would encourage you to execute quickly to get into this position. But it's dope. You don't need any degree to be a PA. You don't need to wait a year to be a PA. And honestly, you don't even have to be an ambassador first to be a PA. The guy who got the PA position before I did wasn't even an ambassador. He just went from a dock person, a pallet runner, straight to a PA. All right. So when it comes to another position that a lot of people be asking about, they like, yo, what's the requirements for becoming an AM at Amazon? And this is internal. So I'm pretty sure it's different when you're coming in external inside the warehouse, but this is internal. This is internal, just with my experience. So you have 2 ways that you can go about this. If you have your bachelor's, if you got hired on as a stower, you can shoot for that AM position and you don't have to wait your 2 years because you have your bachelor's. You can come in, you could be stowing for a month. They have a position. You can go for it if you have your bachelor's and get it. If you do not have your bachelor's, there is a time limit on this position. You can't just go up in there and become an AM, even if you're killing it, even if you're doing all the responsibilities as an AM, even if you're doing better than the AM, even if you're killing it. They're like, nah, you're doing great. The big grand speeches that I talk about. Oh, you're doing great. You're killing it. You're a superstar. Am I an AM? Not quite yet. A year and a half left. Definitely want to make sure for another requirement that you don't have any write-ups and that you have your 10 hours of UPT. But I've never seen nobody go in for the AM position and be like, hey, we can't do this because your UPT. Has it happened? I'm pretty sure maybe. But I have personally seen people with lower UPT and nothing was said. This can go by a case-by-case basis. I'm not saying that's the standard. I'm just saying from my experience what I have seen. All right, so the difficulty level for this position, which is the AM, I rated it high. I didn't put it extremely high. I actually put the PA position more difficult than this. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I did. Maybe I'm just a little more biased towards my PA family. But one of the reasons why I put that is because once you hit that PA position, which I said was the most difficult one that I think is to get into, it's pretty much a waiting game to get into this AM position. If you, how do I say this? If you're endorsed, if you have the endorsements behind you, how do I say this? Because I've seen people wait and wait and wait and wait. And they, for some reason, don't get into this position, even though they be killing it. But if you ever seen my video why I stopped climbing up the corporate ladder, I kind of give some detail into there. It seemed like they hit a little bit of turbulence. I don't know. I'm just saying that's just my opinion from my experience. But I just wanted to give a quick rundown. I hope that was some help. If you feel I left something out that was some important knowledge as well, drop that in the comment sections as well. Yes, this is your boy SB. Be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can see when I drop videos. Yes, I'm an artist as well. This is my song called Whoa off my project called Motivated. Shout out to everybody who's been supporting. One of the first singles, Hard Work Pays Off, already hit over 8,000 views, is on the road to 10,000, over 600, almost 700 reels on Instagram. I forgot how many shares on TikTok, but y'all been showing some major love. Also on Facebook, if you search that up, SB Hard Work Pays Off, a gang of people have been sharing it. Anyways, man, thank you guys for the support. I'm gonna catch you on the next video. Let's go.
Look, they say I couldn't do it, but I did. Turn stacks to a crib. Yeah, going up, going in. Let them sleep, bedtime, tuck them in.